Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee, hosted by Dario, Nouri, and Kyrill Lazarov. CGC is a show where we invite business professionals to discuss industry topics and share experiences. Today we welcome our guest Sam Sferrazza. Sam is a producer and founder of Route 11, a Toronto-based production company that makes music videos, commercials, and content for brands, artists, and agencies alike. We hope you enjoy our discussion, so let us start. Dario, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, how was your weekend?
It was good. It was nice. I finished we had two shoots last week, and it's been really busy since the summer, honestly. And that was kind of the last of it. And so I just kind of enjoyed myself, and now I was taking it easy today.
Yeah, it seems like October is where if we did get work, October was the month where all the production was kind of happening, and now everybody's kind of shifting into post work, especially since the first snowfall was yesterday, I believe. Mm-hmm. So kind of hectic, eh?
Yeah, that's true. I was also juggling a lot of post this month, which I thought October would be a breather, and then a bunch of stuff was in post, and I was like, oh, this is just as stressful in a lot of ways. I forgot post was like this. I had 3 videos in post, and I was managing all of them. It was just too much.
Were they music videos?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of music videos. All of the post-production stuff was music videos, and then the one shoot last week was a small commercial, fun digital thing, just product shots. So that was cool. That was different. But yeah, a lot of music videos.
Who are you doing it for?
Who?
Yeah, the artist.
The artist, yeah. So we just did 2 music videos in October for Savannah Ray. She's really talented, really good music. I'm excited about that one. We did one that just came out a few days ago for Mono Whales. They're an indie rock band from Toronto. It's called All or Nothing. And it's directed by my friend Evie Stamatov. And the Savannah Ray music videos are directed by a really talented director and friend, Alicia K. Harris, and we represent her at Route 11. And then before that, it was just a bunch of other stuff. Some stuff, again, with Alicia for coffee. We did a coffee video for her song Pressure, and then a remix video for Coffee Again with Buju. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He's really famous in dance hall, which I myself am not familiar with, but he's a really big deal in Jamaica. So we had another crew in Jamaica do that. Yeah. And then actually later in the summer, I had a really good shoot with this independent artist called Tara Jam. And I'll plug her just because she's so nice. She was so nice and warm and so flexible to work with. And I was so scared because it's kind of just us and the artist. And I was oh, this could really go anyway when it's just you and the artist. But she was great. And the video was stunning. And we did that with Keisha Chung, who's a really young up and coming director who I met through doing these Zoom check-ins for Black and woman identifying people of color. And I met her, and then when Tara phoned us or contacted us, it seemed like a good fit. So that's kind of been everything I've been busy with, to answer that very longly.
So because you tend to focus a lot on music videos, right? Is that your niche?
Yeah, that's just what we have. That's just what we have been coming in now. And with coronavirus, we're just kind of taking it as it comes. I don't know if it's a long-term thing for us necessarily, but it's what we've been busy with. So that's what we've been doing.
Oh, so it's a fairly new kind of project type that has been kind of coming through Route 11, right?
Music videos, you mean?
Yeah, because you said you haven't done as many before, but until recently, now you've kind of been doing a bit more of them?
No, we've always done a lot of music videos, and it's kind of been our bread and butter. It's just always kind of been the plan to move on to more commercial stuff after that. And we have done that, but yeah, like I said, just especially now, we're just like, okay, this is what's coming in. Let's do it, because it's weird times.
Has it been has the music video scene been affected at all by COVID, or because it doesn't seem like it would be, right?
No, a lot of music videos are non-union, and you just have to do your best as a producer to make everyone safe. Without putting any of my clients on blast, I kind of wish there was more lax timelines and more resources allocated to keeping people safer. But to be honest, I found during coronavirus, the standards that clients expect is like, it maybe went down for like a month, and then they were like, okay, back on it. We need content because we like can't shoot like this big thing, or like, I don't know. There's just like, the standard at which they expect didn't really change much, which is like kind of disappointing. It's like, we are in a global pandemic. If we could just get like an extra week with post-production because their editor can't like edit in person, and they're like, sorry, our deadline is just really locked in. It's like, what? So I don't know. I wish it was a little more relaxed. It would make a lot more sense, but just the reality of things can't really change much.
I think a lot of people have been just trying to, as you mentioned, like we haven't been making any content for months, and then all of a sudden, all those months of planning that some companies might have been doing, I've decided, okay, we need to roll out everything ASAP because we have marketing plans that are set in stone, and you guys got to make that happen. How do you typically manage like very strict deadlines like that? Or how do you try to communicate with the client?
I think the first thing I've learned is that you should just ask for an extension, and you should do it early. And the first thing, once they send you the post-production thing, you should be like, this is very tight. We would like more time. And then what you'll discover is, if they have hard deadlines, you'll discover why. And if they don't, they don't. But I always tell people, like, what I've learned, especially recently, is if you need more time or more money, ask. Like, we have this taboo of like, well, then they're going to think I'm irresponsible. No, they'll think you're irresponsible when you run out of time and then you ask for an extension. But if you are like, you're doing your job to manage the project, right? And if you are like, as a producer like me, you look at the post-production deadline and you're like, this is insane. Can we have more time? Which is something I just had to do, And yeah, it's good to like go to bat for people as a producer, like, to be like, okay, if I was an editor, I would think this is insane. And like, I can see that they would have to work weekends. Like, I wouldn't want that. So, you just like kind of put your neck out. Yeah, that's how I would deal with it, is ask.
Mm-hmm. So as a producer, what would you say are like the best qualities that you should have, or some of the top qualities?
Best qualities for a producer.
Or you can't live without.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that's like more interesting than like being organized and time management, which is like kind of given. I think it depends. Like, there's all kinds of people who are producers, and there's no set way of going about it. I think you have to have really good communication skills. I think that you should have like some level of emotional intelligence, because a lot of the time producers are dealing with, yes, like time and budget and those kind of things that seem like emotional, but those things are tied to people. Like, if you're asking for more budget, you're asking for more strain from like a person in the marketing department. So like, that's a person to person thing that you're asking. You're not just asking the spreadsheet for more money, although I sometimes do that. Yeah, some people skills, and like, I think you also have to have some of that like dad energy, and that's like, no matter your gender, just like this is gotta put my foot down, this is the way it's gotta be, and I'm sorry, I gotta play the card. I've had to do that, where it's like, I want to give you this, but I can't, and so we're not doing it. A lot of that to keep things on budget. So yeah.
Yeah, you have to really manage the creative side of things with the business end of things, right? And yeah, like what you said earlier was was correct. You do need to have like, I'd say like a really strong level of emotional intelligence, because you're
Yeah.
dealing with the client on one side, and then you're dealing with the creative team on the other side, and you need to be able to communicate between both camps and then try to find like a happy middle ground for everyone involved. And
Yeah.
at the same time, you also got to let them know that, hey, I'm batting for you, so if I'll try to get what you want, but I'm also dealing with this other stuff. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting. You're juggling like many hats.
You hit the nail on the head, really. Like at a very high level, I sometimes feel like a double agent or something, because I have to communicate from the client to like everybody else. But then the director will have like ideas, and so I have to kind of be like, do we have budget for that, and kind of have those negotiations. But then sometimes too, directors will like doubt themselves and be like, I don't have this idea. So like I'll sometimes be like, well, what about this? I'll have like my own ideas, kind of like calibrating in my head, like what the client wants and what the budget is. Like, what about this? And they'll be like, that's great. And I'm like, okay, great. So it's just kind of like spinning plates, like keeping things aligned for sure. But as I said, there are like those hard decisions that are like really important to keeping like the client happy and like things on budget, which like it sounds really boring, but you kind of need to do those things. At the end of the day, like it's hard when you realize this the hard way with some projects. And I've had that happen where you're just like, well, that's what the client wants. And so send, like, you're like, and the director's like, what? But my name's on. And it's like, yeah, I'm sorry. They're paying for it. I don't know what to tell you. And I hate it when that happens, but it does happen, you know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Has that ever like damaged the relationship between you and a director, where you had to put your foot down and say, look, I know like your creative vision is this and that, but like at the end of the day, like this isn't for you.
The
Like,
client is paying all our bills.
yeah.
Well, this is where the communication and like I think emotional intelligence comes in. There's a way of having those conversations where people understand that the spot that you're in. And some people will do it in a way where they make it really personal for the director or whoever it is they have to communicate with, and then that's a burnt bridge. But it doesn't have to be that way. If you're keeping in contact with the director and letting them know like where you stand and where the client stands, then when that hard decision comes, they'll be able to like trace it back and understand. And sorry, I have a way of like talking about things at a very high level, because it's like I don't want to get specific, because it's like
Of
so
course.
Yeah,
different
yeah.
from
You
project
could leave
to
it
project,
generic.
like
No.
what that could mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, but yeah. So that's why I said like those things are important, because there's a way of having those conversations where a director isn't feeling betrayed. But you know, there's a reason why I think I've heard like, you know, producers and directors like they clash because one's creative and the other's like money. But I think if you're falling into that dynamic of like us versus them in any relationship in creative, like you're really getting into hot water.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it's definitely trickier. It's more applicable in with you with the music videos, because at least with us, we do corporate work, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like you could be creative, but at the end of the day, it's a corporate video, and you're not creating something very artistic. So, like, if you do have
To an extent.
to an extent, but if
Yeah.
you have like a music video and you have
Yeah.
a director on that, like it's way more of a creative outlet. So you could
Yeah.
see, and there's people that like build their whole portfolio and career around that. So you do have more. You'll run into more of those issues when you're trying to juggle the budget with the creative, right? So I think it's definitely a lot trickier on your end.
One thing I kind of wanted to steer the conversation into is that you manage a team of directors, kind of like a roster. I've always been curious about when a project comes through your doors, how do you typically go about selecting the right person for that job?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of the times when a project does come our way, in all the number of ways it does, there'll be a director already in mind by the client. A lot of the times we've been having a lot of good luck of, you know, our directors are real go-getters, so they will sometimes bring stuff to us. Like I was talking to this client or this artist, and you're my production company of choice. So like I want to go in this together. And to be transparent, like we are pretty open with our roster. Like if they want to collaborate with other producers, depending on their contract, they're more or less open to do so. So yeah, it'll come in those ways. But sometimes we do have to kind of select a director that fits. Sometimes that's obvious, like if it's like a food client, food and drink client, or even tabletop. Like we have Tracy Cox, who's really talented and fun to work with. I just did a shoot with her last week. Can I say the client? I don't even know, but it's a fun alcohol brand. And other times we'll be like, okay, what's a good fit here? Or sometimes people will be like, I really like this video, and it's like, okay, well, let's see if that director's available.
So essentially, you have a roster of directors, but they act more like a roster of freelance collaborators that you've worked with on many projects.
Yeah, and that's just because we're flexible with like the industry. I think keeping them in a box would just limit their work. And to be honest, our team doesn't have the flex enough to like be bringing in enough work to keep everyone like busy all the time. That's just not a reality. If someone out there knows how to do that, please let me know. But yeah, it's just flexible.
So how did you get to the point where, like, how did you approach them with that proposal to say, like, hey, I want you on my roster? Like, was it just like, hey, you want to be on my roster and that's it? Or did you offer something else in return? Like what?
Yeah, honestly, this is kind of, again, where I'll go back to like being a people person and like communicating, because a lot of the times it's not like a business proposition where we're like cold emailing people and doing that. Although if that's your style, like go for it. There's lots of sales training that I have tried to learn and have wanted to give myself a lobotomy over. But it's been a number of ways. Like Max, who's on our roster, is like a longtime collaborator and partner at Route 11. He helped start the company, so he's like on there because like he's been there since the beginning. Tracy Cox actually emailed us because she really liked our branding, and then Ryan, who used to be with our company, kind of started the relationship there, and so she actually cold emailed us. She's a real go-getter. It's why I love her. Who else? Like, I'm trying to think. Stephen Dunn is still on there, and he, again, I think that was like through Ryan or just like reaching out to him because we had like a cool project he would be a good fit for. So it's just kind of like a number of ways, like kind of a networking sort of thing, I suppose. And Alicia now, like who's on there, is because I think did we get the, oh my God, like why don't even I remember? Well, we know Alicia through Ryerson, which is a lot of Route 11 people have done the Ryerson film program. I haven't. So we always knew her. And then I think a specific project we pitched for Julie Black, which didn't pan out, but we were like, we really need like a Black female director. That would be cool. Like, oh, we know Alicia. And then that started that relationship. And then we've just been giving her pitches ever since until finally like Coffee and Savannah all came through. And so she's felt really supported by us because we were always like feeding her treatments, even if they weren't like greenlit, which has been really nice. And now she's like, you're my number one pick for producers. Like even still, like a few days ago, she was like, I have another project. You're my first pick. And it's just like really gratifying to have that relationship because, yeah, going through production can sometimes be stressful. So sometimes as a producer, I always worry like, are we still good? You know, it's a lot, these projects. So it's nice when we come out the other side and it's like, let's do it again.
Do you find that a lot of the directors you work with bring along their own production teams, or are you sourcing that for them?
We generally source it for them. Yeah. For the most part, yeah. But you know, some directors will have people that they like to work with, and I always look to the director first for filling certain roles for sure.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, like, is there typically, like, say for example, if a director didn't fill all those roles, like for example, one of the next most important role that you need to fill after director is typically the director of photography. So how do you guys typically go about that? Do you have maybe the director let you know what kind of vision he wants, and then you go and look for those DOPs that you source for him or her, and or do you kind of or do you just have the director sometimes source it themselves?
Yeah, so the DOP is a really important team member with the director. I think that a DOP and a director have to kind of be like Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Like they really have to be a duo. Sometimes the director will have someone in mind. Oftentimes they do, just because it is so important. So it's like in coming up with the idea for the video, they'll be like, and this person who I've worked with would be great for it. Other times they maybe don't know. And what I've done in the past is just really simple. I'll make like a Google Doc spreadsheet between me and the director. And I say, okay, I'm going to put like 4 DOPs that I think would be good for this in first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice. And then you add your choices as well. Generally, what I do is if the director makes suggestions, I'll tackle those first. And then sometimes they'll be like, I like your choices. And then I go down the list. And that seems to work, especially with like the commercial music video work that I do, where like we don't have a lot of time. So I'll be emailing like 3 DOPs, 3 production designers, sometimes even at once, to be like, what's your availability? Because everyone's so busy. Especially during COVID, it's been really hard to crew, harder than it's ever been in my career. Everyone's been so booked, yeah, and it's been a real challenge. So that like practical tool has been a great use.
It's interesting you mentioned that everyone is so booked during COVID times, because a lot of the people that we've spoken to over the last few months, they've mentioned how, work has been difficult. It's been hard to find work. Whereas, in your experience, a lot of the people that you've been speaking to are at least your go-to people are all booked constantly. I mean, that probably might say something to like probably on how high of a level some of these productions are. And, you certainly need a certain kind of portfolio for that. Is that it? Or?
And I guess, yeah, that does seem a little weird, especially considering how, because of COVID, you have to use more skeleton crews. So there would be, like, let's say there were 10 people on set. Now there have to be, there can only
Like
be 5. So
yeah.
there's 5 people that are now out of work, right? That could have been on that job, but now aren't. So it's interesting to hear.
I'm just as like confounded as you guys, but I just know from like personal experience, like everybody's been busy. And when I go to pick up equipment, or when I go to like talk with people and I'm like, are you really busy? They're like, they give me this look like, yes, like they're so like, they're just like white in the face. Like I was talking with a rep at, I think it was, oh, who was it? It wasn't Vanguard. It was a place that represents DOPs that I can't think of, and it's embarrassing I can't think of. Nobody judge me. But they represent DOPs, and I was like, are you, like, is your roster busy right now? Because I'm going out of my mind. I can't find people to fill roles for projects. And she was like, I have no availability. Everybody's gone on the job.
Wow.
Like, yeah, because some people will call this rep apparently and be like, who's available? And she'll be like, no one. Like, everyone's out on a job. So, and I mean, I know that this is a podcast for creative, so I want to say that I have a lot of gratitude for being busy right now, and that's not always the case for a lot of the creative industries right now. I will say it's been hard to have that gratitude because it is a pandemic, 1, and number 2, I've been very busy and would like a break, and now I finally have one. But I've been trying to balance those 2 things where I'm like, people aren't working right now and you're working, so don't like bitch too much.
Well, you said you're really busy now. How does this time period compare to pre-pandemic? Did you have, like, were you just busy the whole year, or did you have like dead zones?
Oh, absolutely had dead zones, yeah. So this definitely feels like it's because of COVID, because it lasted like through the summer into now. So generally summer would be our busy time. And sometimes it would pick up like midsummer, and then sometimes last into September a bit, just to like finish things off, And then, you know, I would feel like a pioneer woman. Like I'd be like, winter is here. Hopefully we have enough in the we have enough in the cellar to keep, and we would just like go into hibernation like like, oh god, it's so cold, and then like emerge again in like May with like sometimes literally no work. Like it's embarrassing to admit, but like sometimes literally like not even a peep or an inquiry, and I'd be like, oh my god. And your self-worth gets so eroded too when you're a business owner on top of it. So I'm just like, yeah, in my cellar with my bonnet on until the spring, but now hopefully it'll be a bit different.
Okay.
That is probably the best analogy we've heard of what the dead season is like. Yeah.
we've had dead zone in the past too. For us, it's usually been from December till
end of February. Like those are usually the ones where we would probably get like a couple projects here and there, but not enough. Obviously, you know how it
stopped last year. Last year we started the year strong.
Yeah, we did. We did start the year off strong. We had a lot of stuff lined up, especially, but it was unfortunately all that stuff that was lined up was for after March. All the planning was in January, February.
I was in the same boat, yeah, for sure.
And then all of a sudden, nothing. And it's like, just when we had a really well projected year too, you know.
And you know what's funny? Like before that, we're like, oh, so we've been plateauing. We got to do things differently this year, right? So we're planning for that, and then we start the year off really strong. We're like, finally, we're breaking out of this plateau and everything, and then boom.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is that as soon as like the COVID thing, well, it started. I can't say dying down, but
opening up again.
When the city started opening up, like we got super busy. It's like everyone wanted to do work again, and it was crazy. We made like almost half of what we made last year just in the last 2 months. So it was
that's us too. It's really funny because we're in the same boat. I think we did a video for Sean Hook. We shot it on Valentine's Day, I remember. So it's February. So that was like, oh God, we were just on the cusp. We didn't even know the paradise we were in. We didn't even know we would be east of Eden. We were just so naive. And then so we're shooting Valentine's Day. And then it was the same thing. Then it hit, and me and Peter just thought, what can you do? Like, we can't shoot. And then right when we opened up in June is when we did the first coffee video, and it's been like 8 music videos since then. And then here I am, which is why I'm like, I'm tired.
Can you tell me a bit of what's the difference between shooting like a music video or a corporate video? Or would you say they're kind of like the same?
Yeah, I've done corporate videos, which that's more what you guys do, is what you were saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely similarities. I think like even though corporate videos are like less exciting, it depends on what your view of exciting is. If exciting is making money, corporate videos might even be
very excited.
To be honest. But there's also like cheaper corporate videos too. It depends what price point you guys target. The difference is I find the clients actually to be a little more like lenient for corporate videos. Like I've had a lot of, maybe I've just been lucky, a lot of the corporate stuff that I've done, like the clients have been like, wow, just everything we do is just like, that's great. I didn't even know I would be getting this. Like, you're like, and now we're going to color the video. It's not, they're like, that's not it? I can't believe it. Which, and then in music videos, there's just more like levels of approval, and like, I don't want to sound cynical, but there's like egos and there's a little bit of vanity involved. So that's like, it can get trepidatious where people want to like look a certain way and they want to be cool and they want to be on the edge. But like when you're doing like 3D printing, like orthopedics for a client, they're like, we just want to show that our product is great, and like, look at this 3D printer, and we're like, we got you, it's fine. I don't have to bring in all the stuff for that. Like, you can kind of cover your bases, but it has its challenges too. Like, you guys were talking about like managing clients for corporate stuff too, and like you can really fall into some like landmine situations where you're like, oh, look at this great product shot we have, and they're like, the wrong finish is on the, like, oh my goodness, we can't show this because, you know, this is like, it's pink, when like we would never have a pink mold for the orthopedic thing because that's not industry standard. And you're like, oh, I'm learning a lot about orthopedics suddenly. You know, and you don't even know like the sin you've committed. So there's that too.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that are beyond your control when it comes to like corporate stuff. One thing we've learned to just, you know, it's part of the business, and if things need to be redone, or like we will all revisit that. And
we haven't had
aspect,
that.
but
we have not had a.
If I'm just saying, if that happens, you know, it's an easier thing to manage.
Usually, what happens though is that the client, like, because we always have the client on set with us, right? And I think at that point they kind of realize why we mentioned some things in the pre-production. It's like we needed to do this, that, because now we're in this type of situation. But they've usually always been like understanding, and
we've been
like,
fine.
They get what it is, and I think at a certain point they just go like, okay, we need to get this and go. You know?
Yeah, it's a standard challenge that you would typically face in the corporate world. But one thing that you mentioned that I think is a challenge that a lot of people face in the creative world, and is very, very difficult to manage, especially if you don't want to burn bridges, is managing egos. And I just wanted to kind of get a sense of how you approach that, especially if you have, like you mentioned, some people want to look a certain way, they want a very certain style, or their definition of a style is very different from what the director's definition is. Like, how do you manage that?
You know, if you really want to get like in detail about it, there, as much as I said I hate those sales trainings that I've done, they have some really great, like, if you're especially type A like me, they have some pretty great charts on managing different personality styles. So one that I have felt is helpful, and I might have gaps in my remembering it, is disc profile. So if you can imagine like 4 square quadrants, and D are dominant, I is, you know what, I should just tell people to look it up. Google disc profile, DISC.
Yeah.
And basically, like, there's dominant, which is D, and there's like I, which is interpersonal, I think. And basically you can kind of put people into like 4 different categories, and it tells you how to communicate with them best. Because I think when it comes to egos, it's just a communication thing, you know?
Right.
Like, dominant people don't want their time to be wasted. They want to hear just the facts, and they want you to do it quickly. And for someone like me, who's more like emotional and more like, hey, how are you? I want to like make friends. They find me kind of annoying because they're like, you're wasting my time, or you're being fake with me. They think I'm being fake when I'm trying to be friendly. And so it's like, I'm not, and like, they're not wrong either. We just need to find a way to like mesh. So when it comes to egos, it's just a communication thing. Like, when it comes to doing an interview for a corporate client, or somebody lip syncing like a track for a music video, they're not wrong to want to look their best. So don't begrudge them for it. Just prepare for it, because they're a human being and they want to look nice. You know, we make things look nice. We're in video, so you know, don't get too cynical about it. Just like try to move with them in that case.
Yeah, especially in music videos, where not only do you need to sound good, but you also need to look as good as you sound.
Yeah, it has to complement it, and
even more so because it's like you're selling more so the person almost at times, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just like where the magic comes in, you know? Like, it's not just the stylist, it's not just the makeup person, it's not just the lighting or the direction, it's all those things together that make it look good. You know, I just had a video we were shooting on Thursday, and like, people will just ask like, who came up with the visuals? They'll just ask something like that, which I totally understand, but it's like, what does that mean? Like, the visuals, when you're looking at a monitor, it's like, well, this is all of us. Like, the stylist killed it. She looks amazing. The lighting is amazing. We decided on these colors, like, on the fly, or maybe even in the treatment. It's like a mix of everyone.
Was it the client that asked that, or?
It was, I think, a BTS person. Yeah, but they were with the artist team, so yeah, they were happy.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. You mentioned about the four quadrant system of personalities. I've never heard anyone mention that that's how they go about communicating with certain types of people. Like typically, you try to, be as real as you can as who you are, and then like try to make the clients happy. But that's like a very specific way to do it strategically, especially as you mentioned. Like if one person is very dominant, just wants the facts and like no BS whatsoever, and then then someone else who's like a lot more like a emotional, like a friendly, like you said, doesn't always necessarily mesh, at least at first glance. But that's a very cool approach to managing people.
We do that too, but we
it's the quadrant system. I'm just saying it's just interesting to see how he categorized it very simply for people to kind of take away from it, right?
Yeah, we do it based on like vibes.
Yeah,
which is the same thing, right? The non-scientific version of it.
Yeah, his is the more scientific way.
I haven't mastered it. I think it's from. I'm trying to remember the sales training that I got it from. I forget the name of it, but I haven't mastered it. It takes like really a long time to actually adapt how you communicate and talk once you realize somebody's communication style. I just kind of do it a little more like on a low level baseline. Sometimes me and my business partner will even joke, like we'll be like, definitely a D, definitely just wants the facts, this one, we can just tell from an email or something. But it takes if you really want to master it, it takes time, because you're right, we tend to just be like, I'm just going to be myself. And I get that it's like, it might seem kind of phony to like adapt your communication styles, but it's really not. It's really making things easier for you and everyone.
No, I think you 100% need to adapt your communication style.
Yeah.
And like we try to be authentic, but some people, again, like some people are more numbers based, so you kind of adapt to that. Some people are more social, so you just be more social with them, right? Like, I mean, we're social enough to begin with, so for us, it's like, whatever, right?
You just think of it like if you were putting on a presentation for that person, right? So if they are like, I think an I or an S is more social, so you would definitely go into the presentation and be like, hey, how was everyone's weekend? That's like starting off on a really great foot. But if it's like some business analyst who just wants the facts, you're just like, how much time do I have you for? Half hour? Great. And you just start first slide. You know what I mean?
It's funny you mentioned that. The first thing that popped into my head is that scene from The Office when Michael and Ryan were trying to sell this business idea. And it was a lot of, as you said, people who are just very like, simple, like they're doing their work. They don't want any BS. And then they're just doing the super social thing that you would see. And you don't remember this scene where it's just like, how's everybody doing? Woo! Just in the office. And
I remember the scene where it's Jan and Michael, and they're trying to pitch the guy at the Wings place. And then Jan just wanted to do like the numbers thing. And it's like, okay, this is what we can offer you and everything. And Michael's like, oh, okay, let's get some baby back ribs and then go from there. And he did like the whole social thing, and that worked out.
That's a good example of being adaptable.
Actually, if you want to search up disc profile and then just assign an office character to each quadrant, that's probably a great way to like memorize it. I did it on people that I know in my life. So, and obviously it hasn't really worked, but because I'm like, I forget everyone. But I just did like, oh, this person is this kind. But office characters would be great. Michael would probably be more the emotional, like an validation.
Why don't you tell us a bit about the sales trainings you did, and I guess like how they helped you?
Well, when I took over Route 11 a few years ago, basically I worked with my partner, Ryan, and then he left to start another venture and was like, now it's just going to be you and Peter. And I freaked out and hid under my desk basically, and like kind of literally actually, and like didn't think I could do it. And the big thing that was always hard for me is figuring out how to bring in new work, which, to be honest, to this day, like I still haven't really hacked. I don't really know how anyone can like have a sales formula in film production, and I've done a lot of training to try to figure it out. That's something that I guess I'm still figuring out, or have just kind of like let go of. But when I was trying to figure that out, I did a lot of sales training to try to remedy that. What can I say about it? I know that I hate it, and I know that I don't feel good at it, but I know that it's also necessary. That's what I can say about it, because I would just be doing a lot of cold calls and cold emails because I didn't really know what else worked.
It's really tricky in our industry.
Yeah, there's no formula that you can apply and then it's going to work for every single company, because every company is very different. Like we mentioned before, that one thing we tried to do about 2-3 years ago was bring in a salesperson, but they had a very structured kind of templated system for selling, and they tried to apply it to our business. And he's like, okay, so what packages do you offer clients?
God, I was just going to say, did they say, do you have packages?
Oh,
Because they just want a widget. They just want, this is the widget. Do you want the widget? Okay. Do you want the widget? It's like, it's not like that. We had the exact same experience a few years ago. We hired a salesperson and they just have no clue. And it's true. It's really frustrating being in production with that, because even all of the sales software is like, just put in the estimate for how much you think this client is worth. And it's like, I have no idea. Yeah. I can't even tell you that, So then it's like all your projections are like weird because you're like I don't know. It's really frustrating, basically.
Well, there's a whole new step in the sales process in our industry that I think people don't realize. Typically, they would have the product, how much it costs, and then their whole job is just to simply communicate how much that costs to the client and how much they need it. The new phase in the sales process for our industry is that we have to first get in touch with the customers and figure out what their needs are. So it's a lot of like direct contact that we need to have before we could even figure out what the product is, how much it would cost, and like, especially if you're distributing it like nationwide on a campaign, like there's so many variables that go into it, and you have to first figure that out. And then the selling process technically comes in. So it's very tricky you need to have people who are within the industry to really understand that process well.
Yeah, I think we just had one. I think our last guest actually, they brought on a salesperson, and it's been working out well for them because that person was in the video production industry, so they understand the industry. But even within that, you need to find the right person, because the guy we tried, he was doing sales for wedding video production companies.
Yeah.
So he was trying to apply like the wedding packages template to our thing, and it doesn't work like that, because again, we're not selling.
You can't blame him. It works, right? For weddings, it works.
Yeah.
It works for weddings, but for us, it's almost like we're not even selling like the videos. We're selling more so the talent, right? In some ways.
That and the results. It's more results of like what the content will be, right?
I don't think it's results, because that would make sense if you're a digital
maybe if you're an agency, yeah.
If you're a marketing agency, then you're selling the results.
Yeah.
Whereas we're just selling the content, right?
Yeah.
But talent. That content is dependent on a lot of other things, because again, our content is only good if you use it in a certain way, right? Like,
I've discovered this real gap as well, where people really want us to kind of do that heavy lifting, and we're not a marketing agency either. So, that's happened a lot of times where we're like, well, do you have a plan for implementing this content? And, I guess if you were really smart, you could develop some kind of production workflow or something where you're like proven results, because XYZ, we have the data that this kind of production gets like responses. I don't know if that's a company I want to run, so I haven't really done that, and I have never really seen a way to like shoot something to like get more responses or buys or likes or whatever it is that they're after. I can develop a production workflow that's like more collaborative or flexible. I can like be open to different like formats and doing all that kind of thing. But I found it really hard too to kind of say, oh, well, we offer videos that get results. And it's like, I can't really, I'm not a Silicon Valley like data farm that can tell you shoot it this way, because studies have shown in A/B testing that like people with red hair holding your product, whatever it is. Like, that's just not the company I'm interested in running, first of all, and I don't even have that knowledge. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think any video production company could even say that, right? Because
Yeah.
again, at that point, you're no longer a video production company.
Yeah.
You're an advertising agency or a marketing agency, because you do need that extra information. But I actually wonder if like they actually use that kind of thing, like, oh yeah, like use a redhead because then it gets like more
He's
views.
just giving
I was
an example,
actually
yeah.
wondering though if that's a thing. Like that'd be interesting.
I think like the top 1%, like 5% actually do, like they actually do that kind of testing, but it requires such resources and time that I think 99% of like brands are just like, this looks good. Let's try it out. And then they're like, that went well. We don't know why, but we'll just keep doing it until it stops working. That's most marketing.
Yeah.
I went to creative advertising. I kind of know that a lot of marketing is just I don't want to say bullshit because that's not fair, but it's like a lot of just trying things out and being like, well, that stuck.
Mm-hmm. So how do you handle clients that come up to you and they say, hey, we need video content, and you tell them, okay, we could do that for you. Do you have a marketing budget to promote this? And they say, no, we don't. How do you handle that type of situation? Because you know that long term, that's not going to be good for either the client or yourself, because that video is not going to perform well. And if it doesn't perform well, then they're going to go like, why do I need to hire you again? Because again, like I tried video and it didn't work out for me.
I mean, this might be controversial, but I would definitely tell them like, okay, like we can't promise a lot of views or like whatever it is their goal is, but frankly, that is not my issue. If they still want to go forward with making the video, great. How they use it is up to them. I make it clear that I don't promise anything.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can be really disheartening, because especially when we work with like independent artists, for example, I think there is this idea that once they get a good video, it'll just kind of pop off.
Yeah.
And I never promise that. But I think they see our other work and they just assume. And that kind of sucks. So I think in the future, I would definitely have like a conversation where I'm like, hey, is there a plan? And like, let's talk about our expectations for this video, especially to avoid that like sour feeling perhaps towards us, because I think that has happened. But honestly, I don't feel too badly about it. It's not really my job to do the push out of the content. I just make good content. And I don't say that in a mean way. I say that as a person who like really deeply cares about their work. And I need to make boundaries for myself, or else I'll just give everything into every little thing that I produce, and I'll just have nothing left for myself. So I draw the line.
It's definitely hard to kind of like do all that stuff at once. Like if you know you're really good in one certain aspect of the whole process, like keep fostering that and do it really well. But since you focus a lot on just making the content itself and none of the marketing, do you typically do mostly direct to client work, or do you collaborate with a lot of different ad agencies where, you know, if a client does come to maybe say both of you or one of you, you will create the content and then you'll work with this agency to kind of push it out there? Do you have any of those types of relationships?
So I'd say that like 10 to 15% of our work is to agencies, so not a lot. We've just kind of collaborated with a few. Then mostly, I guess I would call direct to client for music videos direct to artists, and direct to client for corporate stuff to the actual brand or whatever. Yeah. So then like mostly direct to client, and then like some, well, I guess in the case of music videos, agencies would be labels too. So like, yeah, 30% agencies, and then like 70% direct to client, we can say. So mostly direct to client, them reaching out to us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially with music videos, since you're dealing with a lot of independent artists of different, you know, sizes in terms of audience spaces and outreach. Yeah, like I guess it really, you are pretty much more so in the direct to client.
I like working with the agencies. Like we just did like a shoot last week, and it's been a while since I worked with like an agency. To be honest, make of this what you will. We've worked a lot really well with like PR agencies that are starting to make their own content. Oh, really? They really like us. a lot of the traditional like creative agencies that I actually went to school thinking I would work there because they're like very they're like winning all the Cannes Lions and the marketing awards. They for some reason don't give us the time of day, and I just think that there's a long-standing like bond between the old school production companies and those old school ad agencies.
Yeah.
I don't really know why, but the new PR agencies that are like starting to kind of eat the lunch of the traditional ad agencies really like working with us. So we just worked with one of them last week, and it was this cute little fun, quick job. And I remembered how nice it was to work with someone like that because we had the storyboards. We knew exactly what the text was going to be. They were like, when we were editing it today, like, here's the font, here's the copy. I'm like, oh, everything is all figured out. I forgot that's how this is supposed to go.
Some companies, the reason they may not give content creators the time of day is because they've worked with certain people for decades. And, obviously think of it like the directors you work with, right? You know how they work. You're very comfortable. You know they will do a good job. It's sometimes going to be a risk if you bring in someone new that you haven't worked with before or tested, and especially on these big ad agencies when you're talking about millions of dollars in marketing dollars that go into it. They're going to obviously go a lot of the time with people they've worked with before, right?
Yeah, and I mean, that's definitely part of it. It's also like these people are really busy and they're really stressed, and it takes a lot of their time and effort to kind of consider a new option. And I was kind of thinking of that when I was so busy and people would reach out to me for stuff. Like, think about it. When you're really busy and someone emails you with a new thing, like, what's your response? Like, you're just like, get out of the way. Like, you're like, so that's like them all the time. It's a busy industry. So I have like sympathy in that respect. I don't know. And that's kind of, have they asked you, like, let me guess, did they ask you to like do like case study videos for them or anything like that?
Case study videos.
Oh no, that's just that when I was first barking up the tree of like big agencies, they were like, yeah, we'll try you out. Would you be interested in doing like case study videos for us? And it was basically like these videos that they would use to submit to awards.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of insulted because it's like, what do you get out of that? You don't get anything. All they want is somebody to like work on a video that they submit to an award. So it'll be like if they did like a Burger King ad, like you would edit together like the success of it and like what they did and all like the motion graphics and everything for it. And we were just like, no, we want to do the actual commercials. And they were like, bye.
Wait, would they pay you for that, or is it?
No, it's free.
Like,
it's to get your foot in the door.
Wow, that's no wonder no wonder you were like, no, like I don't want to do this, like free work for nothing.
If anyone's listening to in the same boat, like I kind of thought early on doing stuff like that would be a foot in the door for sure, throwing a favor. And in my experience, something I've learned is if people don't pay you the first time, they won't want to pay the second, the third, the fourth. They just won't.
Yeah.
We did like this fun, I'll keep it general. We did this fun video for like this agency, and also they were like a digital, I don't know, like they did websites and also like VR, like very technological kind of production company, but like in the tech side and like agency side of things. And we thought it would be kind of like this beginning of this new relationship. And I worked really hard in this video, even went into their office, like edit it at their offices internally to like push it out in time. And the only time we heard back from them again is when they had to do that same video again the next year. So it's just like, oh, you really don't consider me until it's convenient. And it's like, I'm not saying this in a way to be mad. Like, that's what I learned a lot in this sales training, to be honest. It's just like, that's the way people are. That's the way people are groomed to behave in their jobs. Like, they're just trying to get the job done. So
yeah, no one appreciates anything that's free, right?
Yeah, you're just telling people that they should manage their expectations when not exactly an opportunity, but when a gig, or should we say, comes up like that, where it's they want you to kind of do something for free, you got to take it with a grain of salt. It's like, don't expect that you're going to have a whole lot of work after that, because as you said, if you do it free, they're not going to pay you the second or third time, as you mentioned.
Or with a business, like they should have money. If they don't have money, then what the hell are they doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd think that.
I mean, I get like gigs, like if gigs can lead to opportunities. Like if you're working on a short film and everyone's pitching in their time, sure, like you make connections and it might lead to something. But if
Yeah.
you're working with a business, like if you as a business you can't afford what you're hiring, then I mean you got issues. But you did talk about, sorry, you did talk about PR agencies. So
Yeah.
that's interesting because we know about like ad agencies, marketing agencies, but PR agencies entering the field with more video content is interesting, right? Because they normally don't do that, right?
No, so what I've seen in the past, been happening for a few years now, is PR agencies just taking on more of the responsibility of ad agencies. So it's not even necessarily like a PR video of like an event or something, like, because our company wouldn't really do something like that. But it's literally like, I think for them, it's because they're already managing the client and have the relationship going with them.
Yeah.
And so if your client's like, well, we also kind of want to do this push, like, can you manage that too? You know, then the PR agency is just like, well, we're leaving money on the table. That's kind of what's happened, right?
Right.
So because they're already managing their like holiday push out event thing, I don't know, I'm not really in PR, but then they're like, well, they also want like sponsored posts. So like, why don't we just do that too? Because we're all doing the holiday thing for the, so that's kind of how it's evolved.
I wonder
I find our relationship is better with them because they have like more of like a tenacity. I don't know. They're willing to collab with.
Yeah, I wonder what like if they're gonna start evolving their services. I wonder what the difference is gonna be between like if you're a marketing agency versus if you're a PR agency. Because if everyone's evolving, what they're offering, like even us, like we're long term, we want to kind of convert into like a video production agency, but also kind of digital marketing, right? So it seems like everything's getting like mixed together, right? Maybe like long term, there's just gonna be like one thing that's around, right?
Yeah.
And it's gonna be like a mix of marketing, PR, and video or photo as well, right?
Well, that's something that's been happening for a long time too, and maybe they're too big to fail. But I've been waiting for the bigger agencies to really take a beating, and I think some of them definitely have with the closing of some of them. But I've seen PR agencies, become more ad agencies. I've seen PR agencies start representing influencers because they work with them so much. Definitely video production companies doing more digital marketing for sure. It's interesting to see. It's interesting to see these big ad agencies, especially, try to like re-silo their departments and kind of like make new product offerings when it's like you're just kind of combining departments, dude. Like, what do you mean it's a new? They're like introducing, and they'll kind of like make this like Helvetica font, like a new team. It's a new team within our agency, and it's internal production that's like fast, and we shoot vertical, and like look at it, and it's like this whiz bang edit reel, and it's like, oh gosh, I don't know. I guess sometimes it works. I kind of see through it a little bit, as a little guy, in terms of production, but it's interesting to watch.
For those agencies that are trying to make a big show of it, it's like, yeah, we got a vast production team, working around the clock for you, our client. And it's like one guy. Exactly. It's just one guy just sitting in the corner on a laptop editing.
He's an unpaid intern too.
He's an unpaid intern, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, so who shoots, Susan? Who edits, Susan? You're like, oh,
Susan.
no, poor Susan. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny is what it is.
We all got to get a Susan and then make a big deal of it, right?
You killed me with the Helvetica.
Yeah, I know.
That was so on point.
So on point.
You know who I'm talking about.
We all know that font.
Yeah. I mean, do your thing, I guess, if you want.
Sure. So, Sam, what are like some of the maybe short-term goals that you have, like especially now with how the industry is so unpredictable, even more so now than before, like what are some things that you maybe have like in the works or you want to kind of, dive into like going forward, or the type of projects you want to work on?
Yeah, great question. So I think really short-term right now, unfortunately, I'm just trying to ride this wave right now. Like I said, I'm really busy, and I'm just like, thank you. Like, that's a good thing, even though I'm stressed. It's the pandemic, and it's been really uncertain for businesses, including ours. And so we've been really thankful for this work. So I'm going to do that first of all. And then long term with Route 11, we've been working on trying to produce our first feature. And that's kind of been in the works. And that's, I know we didn't really talk about this a lot, but that's always been our long-term goal, is to pivot away from commercial music videos and start producing more long-term and narrative stuff.
What's the film about?
I don't know if I can actually say, but it's a sci-fi feature film with, I don't know if I can talk about it, but it's a director that we have known for a while, and he came to us and was like, I really trust you guys to kind of help, and we sort of have been helping him with the script, and now it's kind of in the later development stages, and we're like looking at funding and all of that kind of stuff. So that's been interesting because I have never produced a feature before, so I'm learning a lot. I'm just taking it as a learning opportunity. And then this might seem like way out there because, again, we didn't really touch on this, but like on top of being a producer, I'm also a comedian. And also during this pandemic, stand-up comedy has like stopped, which has been very depressing as well too, which is part of why I'm like throwing myself into work. It's like, what else am I doing? But I want to be like writing and creating my own TV show or my own content along those lines. So it might even be a situation where I take a break from Route 11 and start like writing, or like trying to get into a writing room for a TV show or something like that. And I just have to plan for that myself too. And I've honestly been waiting for this break in work to kind of reevaluate what I want my like goals to be in the next couple of years. And I'm thankful that I have like a business partner who wants me to just like explore other avenues, even if that means kind of like drifting away from whatever Route 11 is. But yeah, so those are like, that's like short-term goal, and then like mid-term will be the future, and then like the big picture is writing more and producing more comedic stuff, because that's really what I want to do.
I think your comedy kind of shown a bit through this.
That's so embarrassing. Do not tell me I've been funny, because I've also just like talked about like disc profile personalities. So please, nobody take this as a sampling of my actual comedic talent. Thank you.
Is there anything you want to plug, or like any like, where can people find you guys?
Yeah, so Route 11 is my production company. You can find us at route11.com, ROUTEELEVEN.com. And then on Instagram, I think we're ROUTE_ELEVEN. I know it's a terrible name. No one knows if it's route or route, or if it's like 11, the number, or spelled out. Listen, okay, I've heard it all. Also, a chip company took the domain with the 11. So this is what we're left with. So, you can check our website for our latest work on our main page.
Cool. And your comedy website is what? Sorry?
Oh, my Instagram is at Sam is Laughing. I'm trying to get better at posting more like comedic content on there. So yeah, you can check that out too. But I'm very busy. I'm doing my best. Okay.
No, it's all good. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the Creatives Grab Coffee show. You know, I love the discussion, and you really shared a lot of interesting insights into that in your particular world of the industry. So thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Creatives Grab Coffee podcast.
You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Let us know if there are any topics you would like for us to cover in future episodes.
You can reach out to us at creativesgrabcoffee@gmail.com.